Hello everyone, welcome to Chetan Bharat Learning and welcome to our series UPSC Mains through Answer Writing. So this is the last session related to environment and disaster management. So till now we have covered, in the last class we had covered about the disaster management in general. In today's class we will be taking questions specific to certain disasters. So let us move to the first question. The frequency of earthquakes appears to have increased in the Indian subcontinent. However, India's preparedness for mitigating their impact has significant gaps. Discuss various aspects. So why the question begins with the observation that the frequency of earthquakes has increased, but the main focus of the question is that there are certain gaps in India's preparedness for mitigating their impact, and we are supposed to discuss various aspects related to this. Why there are certain gaps, what gaps are there, and what can be done to bridge these gaps. So you can start your answer somewhat like this, that Indian subcontinent is in general prone to earthquakes because the northern portion of Indian subcontinent, it is formed as a result of collision of the two tectonic plates, the Indo-Australian plate and the Eurasian plate. Because of that, the northern portion, the Himalayan belt in particular, and the northeast Himalayan belt is prone to earthquakes. Despite the fact that after 2001 Bhuj earthquake, we had taken significant measures to mitigate the impact of the earthquakes, there remain certain areas of concern. Now, you can mention certain areas of concern. What are the areas of concern over here? Lack of awareness regarding earthquake zoning in India. We have done earthquake zoning for all the the major portion of our country, for all the regions of our country, but there is lack of awareness regarding earthquake zoning that has been done. Now this translates to the construction of structures which are not adequately designed to tackle the earthquake forces, the forces generated by earthquakes if it would strike that particular region. So lack of awareness would be one. Non-adherence of proper building codes. Now here the point to be noticed, non-adherence. Building codes do exist, National Building Code does exist, and it specifically incorporates the structural structural requirements that have to be incorporated into the design of the buildings. But non-adherence, non-implementation of these building codes, next point could be sufficient attention is not being paid to these earthquake resilient designs in the engineering curricula of our institutions. Engineering curriculum. Sufficient attention is not being paid over here. Then there is no system of licensing the individuals, professionals who are engaged in construction activities, particularly masons. If you go to the hinterland regions, the training system by which the masons are being trained, that's very informal. So no formal system exists under which they are being given training. The formal system exists, but if we consider our country at large, then so many masons, in fact the significant proportion of masons, they are not formally certified. So formal certification of masons, that is yet another gap in India's preparedness. Then there are other things like the community level disaster response plans are not there. If the earthquake strikes a particular region, and we cannot do anything to prevent an earthquake. If an earthquake strikes a particular region, how community is supposed to respond? No doubt there are state disaster response teams, and then there is NDRF, and there are official level plans as well. How community is supposed to respond? Here also certain gaps exist as far as the community awareness is there. So these are the concerns that exist as far as India's preparedness for mitigating the impact of the earthquakes is concerned. Now, if we talk about what can we do to address this situation, now that's the another aspect of the question that is being asked. What can we do? First of all, the deficiencies that we have highlighted, if we address those deficiencies, then it would go a long way in enhancing India's preparedness to tackle the earthquakes or to mitigate the impact of the earthquakes. Other than that, we can have something like some of the technological solutions also. New materials, we should work on developing new materials that can absorb earthquake shocks. Energy from the earthquake waves, so that the destruction from the earthquake is minimized. Like it said that earthquakes do not kill, buildings do. So the kind of buildings that we construct, if they are more resilient to earthquake, if they can withstand the impact of the earthquake, if they are properly reinforced, then the human impact of the earthquake can be minimized, at least in terms of life. So we can have a technological solution in the form of developing certain materials that can better absorb the earthquake energy, the shock energy generated by the earthquake waves. Then there should be proper dissemination of information regarding the earthquake zoning, proper implementation and enforcement of the building codes, and there should be harsher penalties if the building codes are not adhered to. So in this way, like if we take these steps, the India's earthquake preparation, India's preparation to mitigate the impact of earthquakes, it can be enhanced. So in this way, you can frame an answer to this question. So with this, we'll be moving to the next question. Why are urban floods so frequent and devastating in India? What measures can be taken to address urban flooding in India? So the question has two parts. In the first part, we are supposed to highlight why the urban floods, they are so frequent and devastating. The reasons for frequent urban floods. Like every now and then you hear about cities getting inundated, Chennai floods, Mumbai floods. Like the story of Mumbai is very sad, that the financial capital of India, almost every year it gets drowned because of the heavy rains. Now, why is it so? What are the causes for frequent urban floods in India? Then like some of these would be natural causes, for example heavy rainfall or cyclone striking the coastal cities of India. Now heavy rainfall in itself, it does not cause inundation. Yes, there is yes, definitely there is more than usual downpour as a result of let's say cyclonic conditions. But what translates that heavy downpour into floods? That's how we manage our urban space. That is the primary factor responsible for urban floods. The rapid unplanned urbanization, the mushrooming up of illegal colonies, the encroachments on river beds, floodplains, lakes, ponds, all these regions, they act as natural sponges. They absorb the rainwater. But in the absence of these things, or in the event of encroachments onto these natural sponges, the rainwater, it gets collected on the paved paths. Like talking about the paved paths, increasing number of pavements in the urban setup. You might have observed that the pathways, the walkways, they are increasingly being paved in Indian cities. Now, that may have an aesthetic value, but what disadvantage it carries is that the water that could have seeped into underground water through these let's say walkways, the unpaved walkways, now that water would flow on the roads and the streets, it would lead to inundation. Then our drainage system is, the stormwater drainage, the wastewater disposal system, it is strained beyond capacity. Because of overpopulation, the sewerage systems that were designed for much lesser population, now they are supposed to tackle the wastewater from an increasing population. Now if you would join this phenomena with the increased drainage during the increased water flow during the excessive rainfall conditions, the sewage system gets constrained. So you have to improve these things. Then like earlier also I talked about encroachments on lakes and wetlands. Invariably, cities have certain lakes or wetlands that provide ecological services to that urban area. But we keep on encroaching the land of these wetlands or lakes. So that also reduces the chances for seeping of the groundwater. Then improper solid waste disposal. The plastic waste particularly, it clogs the drains. So the water is not able to flow. So it leads to inundation. So these are the causes for frequent urban floods. And why they are so devastating in India? Because like heavy density of population, high density of population, poor construction of the poor construction quality. It leads to destruction of the building of old dilapidated structures. Then our electricity infrastructure, that's also not very much up to the mark. So there are instances of short circuits and fires as a result of increased urban flooding. So this makes these urban floods more devastating in the Indian context. The second part of the question, what measures can be taken to address this problem? So we have discussed the causes of urban flooding. If we can address the causes of urban flooding, then we obviously will be able to address this problem of urban flooding. No illegal encroachments, particularly on floodplains, lakes, riverbeds, and such like things. Proper have the green spaces in the cities, proper green spaces in the cities. Identify the low-lying areas in the city and reserve those areas for low-impact human activities like parks and such like things. Storm water drainage. In most of the cities, normal drainage and the storm water drainage, it is one and the same. If we can have separate storm water drainage system which can discharge the excess water that falls in the form of precipitation during cyclones or excessive rainfall situations, then that would be helpful in tackling this problem of urban floods. Storm water drainage. Desilting of the sewerage system. Because of silting, the capacity of the sewerage system to carry the wastewater, it gets reduced. So this desilting must be done at proper intervals if we want to run the system at its capacity. So these are the steps that can be taken to address this problem of urban flooding. And then the proper town planning laws and the zoning laws, they must be adhered to while designing colonies or giving permission to these colonies. Illegal structures or illegal colonies, they must be demolished, or they must be redesigned or refurbished in such a manner that they do not obstruct the natural pathway of the storm water. So these are the steps that can be taken to address the problem of urban flooding. Now moving on to the next question. Frequency of landslides has recently increased in the mountain states of India. Discussing the reasons for landslides, highlight the strategies to reduce risk during such events. So increasingly we are witnessing more and more landslides. What are the reasons for the landslides? And then we are supposed to highlight the strategies. How can we reduce the risk of risk during such events? As far as the causes of landslides are concerned, you can divide the causes into two categories: the natural reasons and the human factors. As far as the natural reasons are concerned, landslides, they may be the result of slope instability. Himalayan region is tectonically active region, and because of that the slopes, they are continuously the rocks within the Himalayas, they are continuously rearranging themselves. They are continuously moving, and at certain events the energy may be released, and it's also seismically active region. So the slopes are basically unstable as far as the Himalayas are concerned. That's the reason for increasing number of more number of landslides in the Himalayan region as compared to the Western Ghats region or the Eastern Ghats region, the South Indian region. So slope instability is one reason. And then, like I mentioned earlier, seismic activity. Weathering. How come weathering? Now this is quite obvious. How come weathering? Weathering is the natural process whereby large rocks, they disintegrate into smaller weathered particles. So how does that process play out practically? The rocks that are constituting a mountain, those rocks by a very natural process, they, because of agents of weathering, because of air, wind, water, glacier, and multiple other reasons, those rocks, they, as a natural process only, they disintegrate into smaller weathered rock material, and that weathered rock material, it may flow down the slope and it may not be as stable as compared to the larger rock, so it starts flowing down the slope, which practically is landslide. Similarly, like very much related to weathering is erosion. Because of the impact of glacier, because of the impact of flowing water, the rocks, they may be, certain portion of the rocks, they may be eroded, and once that portion of the rock, let's say if we talk about the water erosion, if a river is flowing at the base of the mountain, it may erode the rocks at the base of the mountain. If the rocks at the base of the mountain are eroded, the superstructure, the rocks that are lying above, they won't be able to hold themselves against gravity and they may fall down. So erosion is one reason, that is a natural factor responsible for landslide. But then there are certain human factors as well. For example, mining activities. It leads to unnatural instability. Then you have earthwork or road construction activities in the hilly regions, that contributes to landslides. Then deforestation, slash and burn cultivation. Now these things, because of deforestation, the binding of the soil particles, it is destroyed, and the soil particles now, they are freer to move. So under the agents of erosion, it is the soil particles, they get easily eroded away. So these are the factors that are responsible for landslides. Now coming on to the second part of the question, what strategies can we adopt to reduce the risk during such events? We need to identify landslide prone regions. We should have a detailed inventory of the landslides that had occurred in previous 100 years. On the basis of that inventory, we can prepare a landslide, we can identify the landslide prone specific regions. Then certain site specific studies may be conducted on a pilot basis. For example, in the Kinnaur and Spiti region, there is this Maling Nala that's very famous. It's rather infamous for excessive landslide activity. So research studies need to be conducted on a pilot basis. What are the reasons for increased landslide activity in that particular region, and how can how can the impact of those landslides can be reduced? Certain pilot projects need to be run on that for this purpose. Then some National Center for Landslide Research should be established. We have snow and avalanche study centers, like whereby the research is conducted on to identify the areas that are prone to landslides and how can we avoid mitigate the impact of such disasters. So similar centers may be established for the landslides as well. Then let's say a landslide has happened. The local community, it must be trained to respond to the landslide activity. Border roads organization, the local administration, everybody, they should be aware of their roles in the event of the landslide activity. And the construction activities in the landslide prone regions, it should be regulated, and heavy penalty should be imposed if the construction activities are not undertaken as per the building codes. Then risk insurance. If a landslide has happened and a lot of like risk is involved, the financial cost is involved, risk insurance must be incorporated into the plans to mitigate the impact of landslides. So in this way you can write an answer to this question. And now we'll be moving to the next question. Explain with examples how the changing land use pattern has increased the risk of hazards turning into disasters. So here we have two words: hazards, disasters. How the changing land use pattern has increased the risks of hazards turning into disasters. And you have to explain this thing. The demand of the question is that you have to explain this thing with examples. How come changing land use pattern is contributing to increasing frequency of disasters? Hazard is a natural phenomena. Hazard is a natural phenomenon. Let's say excessive rainfall. Now this natural phenomena may have the potential to affect the human life, but only when it actually impacts human life, human activities, human subsistence, that hazard converts into a disaster. Now, how do you relate this thing, changing land use pattern, with this, with the increasing instances of hazards turning into disasters? We have been cutting forests and converting that land for, like, let's say agricultural use or unplanned urbanization. So like we saw in the previous question, that is leading to increasing instances of landslides. So changing land use pattern contributing to landslides. Then we are encroaching on the natural watersheds. That is contributing to increasing instances of floods. We are witnessing rapid unplanned urbanization, that is leading to urban instances of urban flooding. You have the example of the Chennai floods, you have the example of Mumbai floods. Then unsustainable tourism. Unsustainable tourism, the mushrooming up of unregulated hotels and tourism industry. It was a major factor that was responsible for aggravating the impact of the Uttarakhand floods. So in this way, the changing land use pattern, it is responsible for turning hazards into disasters. I guess you will have the framework in which you can write an answer to this question. So moving on to the next question. Discuss the factors responsible for occurrence of tsunami, its effect on life and economy. Also describe the mechanisms for preparedness to reduce the risk during such events. Now we'll be talking about tsunami. Now what are the factors responsible for the occurrence of tsunami? Tsunamis, basically they are caused by undersea earthquakes. The most common cause of tsunamis is the undersea earthquakes. Usually the earthquakes of a magnitude greater than 6, they generate sufficient force to create tsunamis. Then the undersea volcanic eruptions. They may also displace sufficient volume of water to create tsunami. And the last significant cause is the submarine landslides. If a landslide occurs on the seabed or on the floor of the ocean and the sufficient amount of debris is generated, it may also result in tsunami. So these are the primary causes of tsunami, and among these causes also the undersea seismic activity is the most common cause of tsunami, most common factor that is responsible for tsunami. As far as the impact of tsunami on life and economy is concerned, the impact is like you can say that the impact is twofold. One is the direct impact as the result of the waves, tsunami waves striking the coastal regions. So that leads to destruction of property, that leads to direct loss of life, that leads to destruction of the let's say the flora and fauna that exists on the coastal regions. So that's the direct impact as the result of that's the direct effect as the result of impact of the tsunami waves, the destruction of property that happens as a result of that. Another way in which tsunami waves like affect life and economy is the inundation that happens post tsunami. The coastal towns usually they are submerged under the tsunami waters, so that also leads to destruction of old dilapidated houses because as a result of prolonged flooding. So that also has the impact on life and economy. That also has economic cost associated with it. Certain coastal towns, they are so very much dependent on tourism. So as a result of tsunami, the tourism activities, they may be affected, and it may affect the economy of that particular region. So yet another economic cost of tsunami. Then the reconstruction activities. The cost of reconstruction activities is added economic cost of tsunami. The governments, now this is a general impact, you can mention it everywhere. The governments, they usually come under financial strain while undertaking the reconstruction activities. So this is the effect of tsunami on life and property. If we talk about the mechanisms for preparedness to reduce the risk of such events, you can first of all mention that early warning systems are the most important mechanism by which we can reduce the impact of such disaster. India already has a well-developed early warning system. We have Indian National Center for Ocean Informatics Services based in Hyderabad that provides early warning. So the moment an earthquake happens and the time that will take for the tsunami waves to travel from the epicenter of that earthquake to the coastal region. So there is like a time lag of a few minutes, and that time lag, few minutes to it, like depending on the distance, it may even be a significant time. So that time interval is very important as far as evacuation and like taking into action the emergency plans are concerned, the disaster response plans are concerned. So we already have a functional early warning system, and the Center for the Tsunami Warning Dissemination, it is based in Hyderabad. What further steps can be taken to reduce the risk during such disasters? Vulnerability mapping. Every city should know like to what an extent it is exposed to a particular disaster, in this case tsunami, and the construction activities in that particular region, they must be undertaken keeping in mind the vulnerability profile. And then as far as the tsunamis in particular are concerned, mangrove and other coastal forests, mangroves and other coastal forests, they help in reducing the impact of the tsunami waves striking the coastal region. So these must be enhanced. The retrofitting of the old buildings. Now certain infrastructure already exists, So the regions that are prone to tsunami, that are more exposed to tsunami, the retrofitting of the suitably identified structures, it must be done. The public infrastructure, it must be rebuilt or retrofitted in accordance with the building codes that are there for tsunami. Then proper implementation of coastal zone regulations, that must be done. So these are the steps that should be undertaken to reduce the risk of loss of life and property during tsunami as a disaster. So that was all as far as this question is concerned. So with this, I wrap today's class as well, and our environment and disaster management portion is also complete as far as your UPSC Mains 2021 is concerned. This module basically, like the purpose of these classes is to guide you through the answer writing process that is required for your UPSC Mains. You are also supposed to, like, we don't intend to in first place to have the entire coverage through the these questions, nor is it possible. We require you to revise whatever content is there on your own, and then you are supposed to test your knowledge on the basis of questions that we are providing to you people. So that's the idea behind the design of this course, and this is what you are supposed to follow in the coming modules as well. So that's all as far as environment and disaster management was concerned. I hope the module or the section that you covered with me was useful to you people. Thank you from my side.